Folks, you caught me eating some chocolate. How dare I for World Chocolate Day? Thank you so much for joining me today. And we're going to have fun. Let me see if I can get this correct here. There we go. Great. So thanks for joining me for World Chocolate Day. In case you haven't met me, I'm Christine Elder, and I'm a naturalist, environmental educator, and visual artist from Central Oregon. And I usually don't talk about chocolate, but this morning I realized it was World Chocolate Day. And I've been lucky enough to travel throughout the neotropics to many of the countries where the chocolate tree is native. And I've visited tree plantations and factories, and of course the chocolate stores. And I always bring home a lot of different kinds of chocolate when I travel. So when I found out it was World Chocolate Day, I thought we would do some sketching. And so you may have seen the link below or in the chat box. Later on, you can download the high resolution images that I have that you can use to practice sketching later. But today we are going to use those same images. So you don't need to worry about downloading those now. But anyway, I'm just going to quickly introduce you to the plant where chocolate comes from. And then we're going to do some sketching. And you can use whatever materials you want, but I'm going to try a few different ones. So anyway, when you think of chocolate, you generally think about the chocolate you eat. Now, tell me in the chat box, are you a dark chocolate lover or a white chocolate lover? Because those are basically two different people, like people who love cats or people who love dogs. I myself am a dark chocolate lover. And sometimes I like it mixed in with other things like espresso beans. And I really love this brand of chocolate that you grind into your coffee, or you make hot coffee with it. I also love to bake. And so, of course, you might have some ground unsweetened cacao in your house. Now, we not only eat chocolate, but we use the cocoa butter, which is part of the bean, for things like lotions. So tell me if you've got some cocoa butter lotion. I've got some of this other kind of lotion too. You might have a lip balm, which I can't find right now. And of course, Jennifer says she loves dark chocolate. Stephen also loves dark. Yeah. Now, originally, chocolate was, well, big picture, chocolate comes from a species of shrubby tree, and it's Theobroma cacao, just like we have here in the picture that I think I'm circling with my mouse. I guess you can't see that. But anyway, chocolate comes from a species of tree from the neotropics. Although it was brought back to Europe hundreds of years ago, and it now grows extensively in Africa and the Ivory Coast. And so a lot of chocolate might come from Africa that you eat, or the chocolate you eat might come from the neotropics. And so the chocolate tree, Theobroma cacao, is named Theobroma for meaning, it's a Greek origin, meaning food of the gods. And of course, the species name cacao, that goes back to, I think, a Quechua name, which is from Ecuador, meaning chocolate. Now, they think that the tree was domesticated from its wild relatives up to 5,000 years ago. And it was originally used for both medicine, ceremonies, and culinary uses. They made drinks from it, and then later chocolate products. So originally, a lot of the products that they made were quite spicy. They didn't have anything that was like the sugary hot chocolate that we have. And so you might be familiar with things like mole, and that has a lot of chocolate in it, as well as a lot of spices. So the original people that were growing domesticated chocolate trees, the Theobroma cacao, up to 5,000 years ago, lived in places like Ecuador and Peru. And the tree is native from Mexico all the way down through Amazonia. And we're not quite sure where it was first domesticated, but they think it was over 5,000 years ago, probably in Ecuador. And so they were mixing it with other native ingredients that were native plants found in those areas, like spicy chilies and like vanilla, which is actually an orchid. The vanilla bean is native to the neotropics as well. And also honey from wild honeybees. So its uses have really changed. Now, it was first discovered by the Spaniards in 1519, when some of the early Spaniards who came over to the New World to discover it had a meeting in Mexico and were offered this chocolate. And within 100 years, it was brought back to Europe, and it was very popular and found all over and then spread all over the world. So that's just a little quick background. And so, the tree makes these fruits, and those are the fruits that we're going to draw. So they first make the fruit on the tree from a flower, and they have a very beautiful flower. This flower I'm showing here on the slide right there, I think. Very beautiful, intricate flower. And this chocolate, the cacao, what am I saying? Theobroma cacao is in the mallow family. And it's related to other plants you're probably familiar with, like mallows and hollyhocks, hibiscus, even the cotton plant that the fabric cotton comes from, and durian, which is the very strong smelling Asian fruit. So it's a huge family, and they have really beautiful, intricate flowers. Another interesting thing about them is their fruit, which you can see, I think, right there, that red fruit. It grows right on the side of the stem. There's not really like the trunk. It's not like there's some stems with a bunch of flowers and fruits. It grows right on the edge of the trunk. And that's called cauliflowery growth form, named after cauliflower, which if you can imagine a big stem of cauliflower with all those individual fruits on the big stem, that's what it looks like. Anyway, I don't want to talk too much longer because I want us to start sketching. But I did want to say a couple other things. Oh, yes. Speaking of the flower, when you think of how a flower becomes fruit, of course, it has to be pollinated. And most pollinators are things like bees or bumblebees, maybe butterflies or hummingbirds. But chocolate is pollinated by a biting midge. Like it's a very tiny kind of mosquito that bites people. Like if you're in Alaska in the summertime and there's those swarms of mosquitoes, it's similar to those. So I thought that was a really interesting thing. Anyway, it's been revered and grown for thousands of years by the Mayans and Incas and Aztecs. And of course, it's $1 billion industry now, whether you like the spicy Hispanic mole versions or the chocolatey versions that you eat, or you like to put it on your body with body butter. And so we're going to start sketching in just a second. Oh, yeah. So that's right. So I did tell you that I've been lucky to travel to the neotropics and actually go to plantations. And so these, the chocolate tree is a kind of a small tree, and in the wild, it grows kind of on the understory. And if you're getting organic chocolate, like sustainably farmed chocolate, it's kind of similar to sustainably farmed coffee, where they're kind of mixed in with some native trees in the overstory. And so the process of turning those fruits into edible chocolate is really long. And I've been lucky to visit some of the plantations and the factories, and there's a ton of steps. first you have to harvest the actual fruit, and it's kind of purplish. Some of them are a little bit yellow. Now, when you do that, you're going to have to cut it open to get actually to those seeds. And you might see the picture here when it's cut open. The white things are the seeds, and they're covered with this white pulp. And I've been in the plantations before where they've cut a fresh one open, and they've let you take some of these raw seeds out and suck on them. And this white part is actually this soft pulp that kind of tastes citrusy. That has actually in the past been fermented and used like as an alcoholic drink. But if you just suck on it a little bit, it's very citrusy. It reminds me of lemon, and it's really refreshing on a hot day. Now, if you happen to be in a cocoa plantation, you've got to be really careful walking around, because a lot of these fruits fall on the ground and start to rot. And then that attracts various rodents, and that attracts venomous snakes. So you got to be really careful if you have the chance. There might just be venomous snakes around. So anyway, so they have to cut them open, and then they have to take those seeds out, and they've got to dry them so that white pulp kind of withers away, and they actually ferment them. That pulp kind of ferments with the beans, and they have them all spread out in a big, well, like I've seen them in big parking lots, spread out all over the parking lot. And so they have to ferment those for a while, and that contributes to the taste. And then they're going to, finish drying them in the sun, and then they're actually going to roast them, so kind of cook them. And then they crush them, and they have to remove those shells. It's kind of like if you think of a walnut, you have to crush and remove the shell to get the walnut fruit. It's the same thing. And so, here's some of here they are after they've been roasted, and they're ready to be crushed. And then you get the cocoa nibs. And then that part is actually ground up and heated. And then what happens is it melts away the fatty part of the nut. You probably know that nuts are really good for you, whether it's almonds or macadamias or walnuts, and the same with chocolate, because they have a lot of fats in them. And so that fat melts away and is separated. And that's what actually turns into cocoa butter that's used for things like on your body. And it's also used to make milk chocolate when they add the cocoa butter to with sugar and milk. That is what makes milk chocolate. So when you separate that cocoa butter, you've got the chocolate left that we're used to eating, the dark chocolate. And so that's a little bit about the chocolate tree, Theobroma cacao, and where it lives and how long it's been grown and domesticated, and the different uses it's had throughout the centuries that were culinary or medicinal or ceremonial. And then I went over some of the steps, the many steps that are taken to create the chocolate and to separate the cocoa butter. And so now it's time to actually draw them. So tell me in the chat box who's ready to draw. I'm going to show you a few different versions. Now, you can use any materials you want, but I like to just demonstrate a few different ways of drawing with a few different techniques. So we'll see what we have. Okay, so let me see if I can get this separated. Yeah, there we go. Okay, yep, there's my hand. And I'm going to remove, wait, I'm going to make this bigger. Let me see, just a sec. Sometimes it takes a minute to figure this out. Sometimes there's a few, how do I get this? Oh, wait a minute. There we go. Solo layout. There we go. Okay. So here we go. And again, Here are a few of my favorite chocolate products. I don't know if you have any favorites you want to share in the chat box with me. But again, here are some of my favorite things, both spicy uses like moles, and body products and food products, both dark chocolate and light milk chocolate. So yeah, I don't see anybody in the chat box that said anything about liking milk chocolate. Yes, Sandra says, let's go. Okay, let's stop talking. So we're going to start drawing. Okay. Okie dokie. Let's get all this stuff out of the way and get our photos. I do like to draw from real life when I can, but I don't happen to have any chocolate beans with me. Those aren't something you can easily bring back from the tropics. Okie dokie. So let's kind of go in order. And yeah, we'll just do a few different techniques. And I'm just trying to get this. Ooh, there we go. Perfect. Okay. Okay, so what do we have here? What do we have here? Yeah, so I'm just going to look at this first. So this is a flower. And a lot of times when I'm out sketching in the field, I will just draw in pen so it doesn't smear. And I'll just do something really quick. Sometimes I'll even do sort of a blind contour where I just go all the way around it super quick. But these are super complicated flowers, but we can make just a kind of an easy version of it. And so we've got a stem here. We'll just draw one of them. And then you see it's got these colorful petaloid sepals that are coming out. And there's a few back here. I think there's probably 5 of them. I think this is a family that has 5 sepals and 5 petals. And then it has this really interesting structure here with some petals that are kind of angled down. And remember, this is in the same family as hibiscus and mallows, hollyhocks. So there's a bunch of cool stuff. And here's the reproductive structures here. And then behind them is a few more of the other petals. So yeah, it's got 5 petals and 5 petaloid sepals that kind of go up like that. And then there's these other really cool structures, which is kind of hard to see probably in this photo, but they're sort of coming up. I think they're an extension of the petal. Looks like a very complicated flower, kind of like an orchid. All righty. So anyway, that's just the quickie of the flower. You can have more fun with that later. Again, you can download from YouTube, or I also put it in a few other places, download these high resolution images. So that's just a quickie of that. So let's do a more detailed drawing now. Let's move on to our fruit. So of course the flower gets pollinated by those biting midges, and then it matures into this fruit. And like I said before, the fruits are born right on the edge of the trunk in this special way that I forget. There's a few different kind of pine trees that do this too. Okay. Now in this case, I'm going to start off for fun with just a pencil, and then I'm gonna do a little bit of shading. Am I gonna do some shading? No, let's just do the pencil for now. Okay, I seem to be angled here. Oh, there we go. It's so hard to get this. Oh, is that better? Maybe I don't know if that's better. Anyway, okay. So again, we had that same stem that the flower was on before, but of course it's turned into this huge fruit, and these fruits can get to be like 6 inches long and up to a pound. And like I said, it's really fun if you get to ever be in the tropics where you're with somebody with a machete, which often guides will have machetes. They can open one of these maturing fruits for you, and you can taste the raw pulp. So you don't have to be too careful with the shape here. Basically, it's sort of an oval, but I like to make it a little bit uneven there. And then you'll notice there's some ridges that you can see a little bit better in this picture, these longitudinal ridges. And I don't know, it seems like might be probably 10 of those because this has 5 sepals and petals. Often that means there's 5 reproductive areas inside. So I'm just going to draw these little bit of these ridges and another ridge here. There we go. All right. Tell me if you're following along. Sandra, are you following along? You say, let's go. Okay. And so there's that. Now, so yeah, that's a pencil drawing. And often I won't use pencil in the field because they smear too easy, but it is something fun to do here. Okay, now we're going to get more complicated. I am going to switch now. We are going to move on to this one, and we're going to spend a bit more time on this. So in this one, I love to use toned paper. Paper can often come in these sheets that are this beautiful kind of a tan color. They often come in gray as well. You can get whole sketchbooks filled with these colored papers. And what I like to do with these is I'll get an outline, and then I'll use some charcoal, some black and white charcoals to get my highlights and my shadows. Okie dokie. So as usual, Sandra says you're doing it. Joseph says hi back. So yeah, we're gonna do this. Now, there's a whole bunch of these seeds. You don't have to get too complicated with these, but since they're in front, let's add some of those first. And so I'm just going to do it kind of fast and just noticing that you're going to put some seeds in front of others. And, not to be too exact. Nature is a very messy place. And to make something look more realistic, just kind of helps to have some things that are, not perfect. And so these beans are about the size of your thumb in real life. So we've got a pile of these beans here. And yeah, we're trying not to be too perfect with them. Okay, hopefully you can see those. We'll darken them up in a minute. And then let's get this fruit. So again, this fruit is a little bit different color because it's been dried. These fruits also come in various colors, kind of more of a yellowish as well when they're fresh. But anyway, I like this beautiful, rich chocolate brown color. All righty. And so let's make our big fruit pod, the cocoa pod or cacao, however you want to say it. I'm just going to make a line here that sort of represents where it's going to be. And just kind of blocking that in super quick. And you're probably getting hungry for chocolate cake or ice cream or chocolate brownies about now. And so I'm just kind of getting that there. And again, I'm not erasing. I'm just kind of going a little bit everywhere. All righty. And then, so again, we have these lines here. And I like to put kind of the one in front. Well, we got this line already here. We'll use that one. So there's kind of these ridges. And then another ridge. That. And then another ridge. And kind of another one maybe up here that you can't see the whole thing. And then down below, we have another ridge. Like I said, these are the same family as the cotton plant and durian and the flowers in your garden like hollyhocks and decorative flowers like hibiscus. So really important economically, this family. All right. So now I'm just going to get rid of that. Now I'm going to show you how I do some shadowing. And again, it doesn't matter what kind of materials you have. The concepts are the same, where you want to think about where your light is coming from. And in this case, we see some heavy shadows here and some big highlights here and some cast shadows here. So I would say my sun is coming from about here. Let's put it there. Even if it wasn't coming from there, it's good to just decide where it's coming from. All righty. Thanks for joining me, everybody, live and in the replay. I hope you're having fun. I know a lot of parts of the United States are having heat waves or those terrible floodings. So it's nice to be safe and indoors. Where I live here in Oregon, it's supposed to be 96 today. So I'm really glad I'm indoors. Okay, it rhymes with orange. Hello, nice to have you back again. You say you like chocolate. Great. Oh, you have the same little emoji as I used in my email today. That's funny. Okay, so I like to put my highlights in first so we don't lose those. And again, the reason I like this toned paper is that you don't have to fill in everything. You can just use the white charcoal for highlights and the black charcoal for the shadows. And the brown paper stands in for your medium values. Now, again, you probably don't have charcoals, but whatever you have, like, right now, if you have just pencil, you don't want to add anything here. You want to try to leave these. But let's just make sure we see where those are. And I see some pretty strong highlights here. And again, we don't want to be too perfect because there's a bunch of ridges on this fruit. And so our highlights are not going to be as smooth as if this was on like a tomato, right? So you got to think about that when you're drawing. And yeah, we see, the reason we know there's these ridges is because we can see the highlights and shadows. That's what tells us that. Okay. And then let's put some highlights on some of our beans. Again, if our sun's coming from this way, thinking about where those highlights are, and there's going to be more highlights on the beans on top than the beans underneath, right? There we go. Okay, and then now going to add our darkest darks. And remember, we're going to leave this color as our middle ground. So, someday if you've never tried charcoals and toned paper, I really suggest you try it. And again, you can download these high resolution images from the link in the chat, as well as the link in the description of the YouTube video. And you can practice with these. Okay. So then I'm going to just use this. Again, I'm not going to go everywhere. I'm going to think about leaving some of the paper color as our middle ground. I love that sound of charcoal. It's like, what do they call that? ASMR sounds. So it gets really dark in here. So we can be pretty strong with these. And it's good to just, we can be stronger over here too, because this is in the shadows. And over here. And then we want to get some shadow behind our beans. And between our beans. And using a few different values. So not all dark, but just softening some of these values so we can really see our three-dimensional form. And if you want to learn more about drawing and these concepts of highlights and values and all that stuff, I do have a membership that I've been mentioning lately. And it's only $22 a month. And there should be a link somewhere in the YouTube. And it's my online program. Anyway, let's see. So I want to have a bit of a cast shadow too. And so that is the shadow that's being cast by the fruit. And we can soften that as well. I've got this little blending stomp, or I could use my finger if I want to. But you see that cast shadow is pretty soft. And there's some little cast shadows on the edges of our beans. And the fun thing is once you get some charcoal, oops, I'm moving this, some charcoal on this, you can actually kind of draw with it. Like kind of like this. So if I pick up some of that darkest shadow, and again, it doesn't matter what medium you're using, it's all the same concept of getting a nice full range of values and knowing where your sun is coming from. And knowing the texture of this, which is a little bit maybe hard for you to see in the video, and especially if you haven't downloaded the images. But I always suggest if you're going to be drawing something, to touch it so that you can really feel the texture. So anyway, you see that I'm kind of drawing with this blending stomp now. How's that look? Rhymes with orange, says between our beans. Yeah. And so it's easy when you're kind of starting to sort of all have like this medium value. So I'm trying to make room for all of this stuff here on the page. It's easy to you know, kind of blend things, and it just is kind of bland like this. So you want to go back in and add, you know, more shadows and more highlights to really get some nice, bright three-dimensional form. And I also have this nice highlighter pen if I want to add some really bright whites here, which I have to be careful of because this thing can bleed pretty easy if I'm not careful. But yeah, oh there, see how bright that is. And so we can add some fun, brighter highlights if we want. But like none of the beans are as bright as this because they're a little bit in the shadow. I think maybe we can put the sun right there. And it's good to think about where your sun is, especially sometimes when your lighting isn't very good. Like when I'm recording in here, it's really hard to show good light because I've got light coming from all different directions so you can see what we're doing here. But now we want to just really get some more bright whites as much as we can. Like I always think of the saying by the famous Olympic snowboarder Shaun White. He used to say, "Go big or go home." And so that's what I like to think of when I'm drawing. A lot of people will kind of stop right here where there's a little bit too much in the middle, but you really want to go bolder to make this look really three-dimensional. So how can we go bolder here? How can we darken? How can we add? And again, thinking about the patterns, this bean is not smooth. This is not smooth like a papaya. So getting really bolder here. So yeah, I do a lot of in-depth lessons inside my program. That's my online membership called the Nature Notebook Club. And I've got some other videos here on YouTube, like the behind the scenes membership area tour. So if you're interested in that program, it's still priced really well at just $22 a month. And you can join for a month or join for as long as you want. So again, remember, I'm leaving some of the paper color to stand in for my medium values. And that saves a lot of time. Again, most of my sketching is done in the field when I'm traveling, and I like to sketch in order to understand the structures of the things I'm observing. And so the faster I can do that, the better, because often you don't have a lot of time. Either the weather will get too hot or rainy or cold, or the thing you're drawing will run away like a capybara or fly away like a parrot. So let's see. Yeah, let's see. How are we doing here? So tell me in the chat box if you were able, if you saw the link and you're planning to download these high resolution images. That's one of the many perks of taking classes with me, is I find these stock images for you. Some of them were mine that I took in the field. Like the photo of me for this event that was in northern Ecuador at a famous chocolate growing area called Mindo, which is also very famous for having a Christmas bird count, which I attended. They've won the contest for having the most birds ever seen during the Christmas bird count. And I was there once for the count, and I actually illustrated the advertising poster for the event. So that was fun. Anyway, again, if I wanted to, I could come in here and soften some things. That's looking pretty good. That looks fun. Yeah, Carolyn said you downloaded. Good. Now, when I am looking at my screen compared to when I'm looking at the real thing, wow, I see it. I see really different. And that's sometimes really good to look away from what you're drawing. So like I see that, I could easily add some more patterns here. So sometimes it does help to kind of separate yourself physically and emotionally from what you're drawing by looking at it like in the mirror, like taking your piece of paper, taking it in the like the bathroom and looking it in the mirror. And sometimes when you do that, or if you take like a photo of it with your phone and then look at the photo, you see things so much more you're not as connected to it, right? So yeah, I'm actually looking over at my screen and I can sort of see things a bit better. But yeah, I'm trying to, and that cast shadow is going to be a bit lighter than the darkest part. And let's see, the beans are going to be darkest in here where they're piled deepest. So I'll try to add some more like that. Yeah, that's helping. Isn't this fun? Did anybody bring watercolors today? That looks fun. So tell me in the chat box, say if you brought watercolors, say me. And if you plan on trying this technique of toned paper with charcoal, say yes. What do you think? I see you guys are really, yep, there's too much there. Soften that a bit or soften it with this. So yeah, I've got some of my students in here watching. So thanks for joining. Yeah, Carolyn and Sandra, you guys are in my Nature Notebook program. I really appreciate your support. And yeah, that's where I'm going to have most of my content. And yeah. So it is easy to like keep working on something like this and overwork it because it's kind of so fun to play with. Joseph says yes. Sandra says, I found a bright blue toned paper and I'm using charcoal. Wonderful. Lisa says yes. Great. Isn't this fun? Okay. Are you guys still working on this one? Does anyone want me to do one in watercolor? Do you want me to do one in watercolor? Say WC in the chat box. Yeah, I'm just looking. Yeah, I'm just looking, softening up. Anyway, um, no matter what your drawing looks like, I want you to focus on what you've learned about the structure of the cacao pod compared to how you drew it. So, the drawing skills can always improve, and mine can improve as well. Of course, it's kind of hard to talk and draw at the same time because that's your left and right brain at the same time. Um, but yeah, I want you to focus on what you're learning about the structures, and kind of the time spent looking at something. It will help you think about what I shared earlier, like how these were domesticated from their wild relatives, probably in Central South America, like Ecuador, 5,000 years ago. Joseph says, can I have a free trial? I don't do free trials since it's already only $22 a month, and you can join for just a month if you want. And if you don't like it, I'll refund your money. But there's already hundreds of dollars worth of tutorials and workshops and lessons and downloadable handouts. So I try to make it super affordable for anyone. So yeah, I don't offer free trials, and actually the platform I'm using, it doesn't support that. I don't even know how to do that. But thanks for asking. I appreciate that, and I'm glad you're interested in the program. Okay, so Carolyn says watercolor rhymes with orange. Says watercolor. Great. Okay, so let's do that. If you want to take a screenshot of this, you can if you want. I don't know if you want to, but here's the materials I was using. So if that would help you to take a screenshot, that's just a beginning. I could definitely keep going, but again, it's super easy to get overworked. Okay, I'm going to try not to go over an hour with you guys. So I'm going to go on to our next and last. And let's see, what do we have here? So now I'm using this mixed media paper. And I suggest this is Fabriano is a great company, but anything that says mixed media is really good. That means you can use different techniques, pencil, pen, and light watercolors if you don't work them too much. So I really love this for in the field. Oh yeah, so here's my little sweet peas that I did in 10 minutes the other day. Learned a lot about those. That was my 10-minute challenge for my students. So I do post a lot of inspiring challenges in my program. Again, it's called the Nature Notebook Club, and there's links to it all over the place. Anyway, so, okay, so how are we going to do this? What do we got here? All righty. So what do we have here? I think we'll do something fun here. So we're going to make this quick. And again, I just like people to learn how to loosen up. Let's see. Sorry, maybe this will be better like that. Yeah. I like to have people learn to loosen up and go a little faster without overthinking things. Because, yeah, I love to inspire people to have the confidence to sketch in the field. Like maybe if you were lucky enough to like be in Mexico City and be visiting a a market, and they had some cool fruits that you could draw. So anyway, I'm just going to draw this oval for my pod here. And this is just a pod. It could be any old shape, so we don't have to be that particular about it. Actually, I might use, no, I'll go the pen afterwards. Okay, so this is the exterior of the pod. And then we see it's been cut in half. And you can see a little bit of the underside here. And then in the center here, there's a thick edge. And again, these pods can be like 6 to 8 inches long and weigh up to like a pound. And then you see all these bumpy white things, and those are the cocoa seeds. But again, they're surrounded by this interesting white pulp. And that's the pulp that you get to taste when you're in the field and they open them up with a big machete. So I'm just going to put some of those in just really quickly. And we see the ones closest to us seem to be bigger. And then there's a bunch of just kind of random edge here from the machete. And then there's some smaller ones that you're seeing more from the side. And again, this is not a biological illustration. We are just kind of playing with things. So maybe I'm making things a little bit too uniform. But anyway, so that's what I would do super quick. Let's see. Let me see. Jennifer says, I use tone paper and water-soluble pastels. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so anyway, we could just have that to start with. And then I would take my watercolors, and you see I've got some beautiful range of warm and cool primaries, as well as some secondaries, and some things that you just have to have, like a bright pink that you can't really mix from red, and a few darks. And so you can go in there, and what you want to notice, let me see, what do I have here? Oh, here. So this is kind of messy, but I like to cut these little pieces of paper. I call them color checkers or viewfinders. This one's a little bit dirty, but basically the idea is I am just trying to see what colors we have here. So like it's really easy to think like this pulp is white, and it kind of is in real life, but with the shadows, you can see that it's actually kind of blue, can't you? So sometimes it really helps to put a little white piece of paper down, or make one of these that are fresh that you can really compare the white. And that helps you to see the different colors. And then, let's see. Oh, where did I put my watercolor brush? I have too many materials here. Just a minute. I'll let you guys catch up. Oh, here it is. So I use these brushes that are filled with water. Even when I'm working at home, I really love these. I do have some expensive sable, fancy watercolor brushes that cost like $50, but I hardly use those anymore. I use these that generally only cost about $8. And so I love these. So when I'm doing watercolor, I'll generally start with my lightest color and go darker. And usually I have this little spray bottle somewhere that I'll spray some of these to make them a little wetter. Especially here in Oregon, in the desert, things dry out so quickly. But anyway, now again, if I was pretending I was in the field, like let's say I'm in Mexico City or maybe Puerto Vallarta, where I've traveled a lot more actually, and I'm at a local market, I'm just sketching super quick. So I'm not trying to be exact. But for fun, I might just make some color swatches to see if I'm kind of close. And a lot of times when you just pick something right out of your watercolor tin, it's going to be way too bright. And so, I might make a few other swatches of things that are nearby. And you see how I'm just being kind of messy. Now I see then there's some both of these more pure yellows and then darker kind of muted gold and yellows kind of in the shadows. So sometimes I'll just, make some color swatches on my paper just to see what I have. So I've got a bit of that too. I see that nice burnt sienna, right? And then I don't know where that other doodad went. I usually have something to wipe this with. Anyway, I'll just squeeze it and wipe it with that. And so the other colors I have in here, again, is this kind of blue. So I will leave some white of the paper for these this pulp. Again, this pulp is really tasty. It's kind of citrusy, and that pulp surrounds each of the little berries, as you can see here. And so you can suck on that, and it's kind of citrusy. So it is sort of whitish in real life, but here we've got some kind of purplish shadows. So again, I could choose, which one of these blues. We've got a bunch of different blues here. This cobalt teal is the wrong blue, but maybe this, or maybe a little bit of this sort of neutral tint mixed in there. Maybe it's actually a little bit purple. So you see that I'm just being really easy with this. And maybe if I just thin it out more, that's looking a little closer, isn't it? Yeah, cool. Okay. So anyway, I will start then, now that I kind of know some of the colors I'm using, I'll start with my lightest ones. And I always start a bit gaudy because you can never get brightness back. So I like to just start kind of bright, and then I can tone those colors down later with some sorry, I lose my train of thought when I'm in my right brain. So, and we can get a little bit darker here. So you see, I'm just doing wet and wet. And then maybe adding some of this burnt sienna down here. And then I could add a cast shadow without touching this too much. You learn to just be super quick when you're in the field. A little bit of a cast shadow. Yeah, and then let's see, I see some shadows. Again, it's kind of a burnt sienna. It looks like it's sort of between some of these here things. And again, this might look a little bit too bright and fake to begin with, but you can always go in and make it more realistic. So, so I'll just try to get a little layer of everything first and then get more realistic. Now that blue, oh, now I got a green. See, I just work really quickly here. Again, we're at the market. We're at a market, or maybe we're in Mindo, Ecuador. Let's see, how did we make that again? Maybe it's a little bit of a purplish. Maybe I'm going to add a little bit of that. Let's see how that looks. That's still pretty. Yeah, and so I can just kind of be going around here like this. And we can always lift some of this stuff. You can always blend it, but you just see that there's little shadows here. And again, focusing more on what you're learning by looking at something long enough to draw it. How are we doing? Yeah, so it's looking really bright and gaudy. So, we're just gonna soften things up. I think I'm getting hungry for some chocolate. I'm getting hangry. So I just want to soften things up. And then I want to add, I think, some more. Yeah, I want to add, this is pretty wrinkly. There's a lot of texture in here from where this was cut with the machete. And it's amazing how these people, like the village lady who's like selling her wares, uh, same thing with, coconuts. When you buy a coconut on the side of the road and the lady's wielding this huge machete and she just cuts it in half, and then and you get to drink the coconut water. That's just crazy. So yeah, just adding some fun textures. Nothing too fussy. And then adding, what do we have here? We see a pretty strong shadow again here. Want to emphasize with this sort of burnt sienna here. And cooling it down on the edge. Yeah, but I start out with something that's really just symbolic ovals, and then trying to get a little bit more detailed as we go. Yeah, so again, we can still tone these colors down because we got a little bit too much here. So, when you first start painting, it's really easy to kind of just think like a kid and get kind of drunk on color and say, oh, that's yellow. And then the more experience you have observing, whether you want to call it that you're an artist or a naturalist, but the more practice you get observing, the more you will switch from saying, oh, that's yellow, to saying, oh, that's a warm or a cool or a muted yellow. Or maybe that's, just something more realistic. And again, we have some pretty deep shadows and some kind of messiness here. Again, the way this pulp, the edge of the pulp is mixing up. And then we have some darker shadows. Anyway, you get the idea. But I try to just not be too fussy. Here I'm using kind of the edge, and then, yeah. And again, when I look at it, on the monitor, mine is not as realistic as it seems when I'm drawing it right here. So definitely need to look at some things like cooling down, muting this because this should be cooler because it's in the shadows. So I'm changing this kind of from the warm burnt sienna a little bit more to this muted color. That's helping a little bit. Yeah, this is really strong, and I could soften this edge because these are round. It's just got those a little bit too much. Okay. And yeah, then I could definitely put this in more shadow down here to make that go away. But some of it is a bit warm. There is pretty a strong edge there. And yeah, then we have actually this cast shadow that's sort of greenish under here. Okay, something like that. What do you think? How do I? I never know which one to do. Oh, that's good enough. There. Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed doing a few different drawings in watercolor, and you can see my charcoal, and we did the pen. And so just exploring a bunch of different ways to depict these flowers and fruits and seeds of the chocolate tree. And so yeah, I hope you have a wonderful World Chocolate Day, and I hope you consider checking out my Nature Notebook Club. We've got 37 members now, and I'm looking to have 100 founding members, and those founding members will get a bunch more bonuses, like a 1 hour one-on-one coaching call with me, and like additional mini courses and workshops and all kinds of stuff. So you can look on my website at christineelder.com/membership, which I also link to below this video, and also in the chat, and also in emails if you follow my emails. So we're still really in the founding members launch of this new program that I'm so excited about. And so I really hope you check it out. Yeah, Sandra, I'm glad you enjoyed trying a variety of materials. You know, everybody has different things that they gravitate towards. Yeah, I mean, I really love color, but I feel like I'm a little bit better at things like this, or I can just keep working it and really focusing on the three-dimensional form. I really love that feeling. So whatever works best for you, you just have to experiment with it. You just have to put on your mad scientist lab coat and hat and do experiments. That's all about what it's about. So anyway, I got to get going. I didn't want to keep you for much longer than an hour, but I do hope you enjoyed it and that you get a chance to have some chocolate on World Chocolate Day, whether it's sweet or spicy mole, or whether it's on your body or your lips. And yeah, I hope you check out my Nature Notebook Club. It's only on sale for a bit longer, and then the price is going to go up. So check out those links, and I hope to see you inside. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.